My name is Sylvester Stone, and I'm 52 years old. For 15 years, I was a senior account manager at Apex Corporation, a firm located in the bustling city of Denver, Colorado. I poured my heart and soul into building their clientele, starting from practically nothing. Then, one Tuesday morning, it all ended in an 8-minute conversation. It felt abrupt, almost brutal. He sat across his expansive mahogany desk, a man named Gregory Hayes, the newly appointed regional director. He stated plainly, without any pretense of diplomacy, "We need younger talent individuals who will work for significantly less compensation." He added, with the same bluntness, "Frankly, Sylvester, your current salary is simply unsustainable given our projected trajectory." I'd sensed this coming for months. Ever since Mr. Hayes assumed his position, the office buzzed with whispers of restructuring, modernization, and aggressive cost-cutting initiatives. The usual corporate jargon, signaling that seasoned employees like myself were likely on their way out. Gregory Hayes was 30, impeccably dressed in tailored suits that probably cost more than my first house, and he had a habit of casually mentioning words like disruption and synergy, as if they were common menu items at Starbucks. During our meetings, his gaze would occasionally fall upon me, not with animosity, but a distinct lack of patience. I felt like a rotary phone in a room full of the latest iPhones, still functional, but utterly out of place in the modern business world. "The market is evolving rapidly," he continued, barely glancing up from my personnel file. "We need professionals adept at navigating the digital sphere and excelling at social media engagement. You understand the dynamics of the current landscape, I'm sure." I did understand, but I didn't share his assumptions. I'd cultivated strong relationships with our most valued clients, through countless phone calls, numerous in-person meetings, and 15 years of resolving critical issues that no marketing algorithm could ever address. For instance, when Mr. Arthur Jenkins of Stellar Industries faced production delays threatening his company's solvency, I painstakingly restructured his payment plan over a single weekend. When Ms. Eleanor Vance of Summit Group experienced an immeasurable personal loss, I personally delivered her contract renewal to ease her burden. But Gregory Hayes wasn't interested in these personal anecdotes. He saw my salary as a number that could be halved by hiring someone fresh out of college. "I comprehend completely," I replied calmly, offering him a handshake. He appeared relieved by my composed demeanor, even expressing gratitude for my professionalism. Later that afternoon, Deborah, from the accounting department, stopped by my office. She'd been with Apex Corporation nearly as long as I had. "You all right, Sylvester?" she inquired, her voice laced with concern.
"I'm fine," I said, meaning it. "They don't have a clue what they're doing," she whispered, glancing nervously down the hallway. "Gregory has convinced the board he's some kind of visionary genius." I simply nodded, continuing to pack my belongings. What neither Deborah nor Gregory understood was that I wasn't consumed by anger. My mind was already racing ahead, formulating my next move. While Gregory was poring over spreadsheets, I was recalling phone numbers, promises made and kept, and 15 years worth of clients who'd never called Apex Corporation. They'd called me.
I joined Apex Corporation when it was still known as West Coast Enterprises. 3 employees, a cramped office devoid of windows, and more ambition than clients. Back then, the company was led by Richard Miller, a former sales veteran who instilled in me a profound belief that business was about fostering relationships, not simply transactions. "People sign contracts with people," he'd often emphasize, "not companies." Remember that. I remembered. For 15 years, I lived and breathed that principle. I was the first person clients contacted when problems arose and the last person they spoke to before signing contract renewals. My personal phone held more direct client lines than the company's official directory. My dedication had come at a price. My marriage to Amelia ended 8 years ago, partly due to my unwavering commitment to Apex Corporation's growth. My daughter, Olivia, experienced a mostly absentee father throughout her high school years, seeing me primarily on weekends and holidays. Now 24, she understood better, and was my first call after my conversation with Gregory. "They did what?" Her outrage was immediate and palpable. "It's business," I replied, driving home with my office possessions crammed into a single cardboard box. "The new director wants his own team. After everything you've done for them, that's just wrong, Dad." She wasn't wrong, but I wasn't interested in dwelling on that injustice. I was focused on what lay ahead. The writing had been on the wall for some time. Richard Miller had retired the previous year, selling his majority stake to investors who'd vowed to preserve the company culture. 6 months later, Gregory Hayes arrived armed with PowerPoints and business school jargon. Suddenly, quarterly meetings were dominated by discussions of market penetration and client acquisition costs. No one mentioned relationships anymore. 3 weeks before my dismissal, I overheard Gregory speaking to someone from Human Resources. The compensation for legacy staff is incongruent with industry standards, he declared, referring specifically to the client relations department. Legacy staff, that's what I was now. A relic. Names. Numbers. 15 years worth of notes, detailing kids' graduations, vacation homes, favorite restaurants. Information you couldn't find in any database. I contacted Mark Johnson, a former colleague who'd left 5 years earlier to join a rival firm. We had maintained a friendly relationship.
How's Peterson and Jones treating you, Mark?
I asked casually. Growing rapidly, he replied. In fact, we're currently discussing expanding our client relations team. A smile spread across my face. Good to know. On the day Gregory summoned me to his office, I already had Mark's offer letter in my inbox. 3 days after my termination, I sat in the parking lot of the Fairway Golf Club, watching Gregory arrive for an afternoon meeting. He was meeting with Arthur Jenkins of Stellar Industries, my most significant client for over a decade. From my car, I observed their handshake, Gregory's overly enthusiastic gestures, Arthur's polite but reserved smile. It struck me then that Gregory wasn't simply replacing me. He was attempting to impersonate me.
He believed client relationships were transferable like computer files.
Meeting by meeting, handshake by handshake, he planned to insinuate himself into the network I'd spent 15 years cultivating. As I watched them walk toward the first tee, a sense of clarity washed over me, not anger. I started my car and drove straight to Peterson and Jones' downtown office. Mark met me in the lobby, surprised to see me so soon. I assumed you'd take a week to consider our offer, he remarked.
I'm done considering, I replied. But I need to revise the terms.
Complete autonomy over client onboarding, my own team structure, and most critically, no enforcement of non-compete clauses against my former clients. Mark listened attentively, then summoned Patricia Peterson herself. Essentially, you're requesting to bring your client base with you, Patricia stated after I explained my proposal. I'm not taking anything that doesn't already belong to me, I countered. These relationships are the product of 15 years of dedicated work. The contracts may belong to Apex, but the trust belongs to me. Patricia studied me intently, then nodded. Make it happen, and the terms are yours. That evening, I sat at my kitchen table with a legal pad and my phone. I felt not vindictiveness, but purpose. This wasn't about retribution. It was about respecting the work I'd done, and the promises I'd kept. Olivia called while I was compiling my list. How are you doing, Dad? Really? I considered the question. Better than expected, I told her. Sometimes you need to be pushed out to discover where you truly belong. So what's next? I'm starting over, but not from scratch. After we hung up, I opened my laptop and began drafting emails. Not to clients directly, but to their assistants, the gatekeepers who controlled access, individuals I'd always treated with the same respect as the executives they worked for. Would you inform them that I've transitioned to a new role? I'd appreciate the opportunity to provide a personal update. No pressure, no sales pitch, just the truth. They want to hear from you. I closed my laptop and slept soundly for the first time in months. Tomorrow would be day one of demonstrating to Gregory exactly what he had discarded. My first call was to Arthur at Stellar Industries. No assistant screening, straight to his personal cell phone. Sean, I was wondering when I'd hear from you, he said, his voice conveying genuine relief. I had a golf outing with your replacement yesterday. He spent 4 hours talking about synergy and never once inquired about my daughter's graduation. That's why I'm calling, I said. I've joined Peterson and Jones. But this isn't a sales call, Arthur. If you're content with Apex, that's perfectly fine with me. The silence lasted a mere second. Send me the paperwork, he said. We're coming with you. By the end of the week, I'd had similar conversations with 6 other clients. No hard sell, just honesty. I was starting anew. They could join me if they wished. They all wanted to. It was Eleanor from Summit Group who first warned me. Your former company called yesterday, she said. Some aggressive young man named Gregory. He claimed you were in breach of contract, that our clients couldn't legally follow you. I thanked her and immediately contacted Mark. He put me in touch with Peterson and Jones' legal team, who confirmed my suspicions. Gregory was bluffing. My employment contract contained a non-solicitation clause, but nothing that prevented clients from independently choosing to work with me. As long as you aren't actively soliciting, you're in the clear, the lawyer assured me. Cease and desist. The message was predictable. Threats of legal action, accusations of client interference, demands that I immediately return all proprietary client information. It concluded with an offer to negotiate a settlement before the matter escalated further. I printed it out and handed it to Mark. He's panicking, Mark said with a subtle smile. The board must be demanding answers. He doesn't understand what's happening, I replied. He thinks I stole something. That afternoon, my phone rang. It was Deborah from Apex Corporation. They're in complete meltdown mode, she whispered. Gregory's been in meetings with the board all day. They're discussing client retention bonuses, emergency outreach programs. He told them, "You hacked the CRM." I had to chuckle. I never even logged into the CRM. You know that. I know, she replied. That's why I'm calling. They're bringing in an external firm to audit system activity. When they find nothing, they'll have to admit I didn't steal anything. Exactly. I finished for her. But Sylvester, be cautious. Gregory's terrified. He promised the board he could cut costs without losing clients. Now he's lost 7 in a week. After hanging up, I updated Patricia Peterson. She wasn't concerned about the legal threats, but was impressed by the client transfers. 7 major accounts in 5 days, she said, without a single sales presentation. I've never witnessed anything like it. It's not about sales, I explained. It's about trust. Just as I was leaving for the day, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Gregory Hayes. We should speak in person. Tomorrow 9 a.m. at the Copper Kettle downtown. This doesn't need to become any more contentious. I showed it to Mark, who immediately advised against the meeting. He's desperate. Don't give him any ammunition. But I disagreed. I wanted to hear what he had to say. Left scanning the restaurant until he spotted me. His usual confidence had evaporated. The tension in his shoulders was evident. Thanks for coming, he said, sliding into the booth. I believe we started off on the wrong foot. I remained silent, waiting. Look, he continued, leaning forward. What would it take to halt this client exodus? The board is breathing down my neck. Whatever Peterson and Jones is paying you, we can match it, plus a substantial signing bonus. In that instant, I knew I had him precisely where I needed him. I'm not interested in returning, I stated simply. Gregory's professional smile faltered. Then what do you want? A consulting arrangement? Finder's fees for the accounts you're taking? I slowly sipped my coffee. You still don't get it, do you? Everything's about money, he replied, with unwavering certainty. That's why you're losing. I set down my cup. These clients aren't following me because I offered better rates or more extravagant service packages. They're following me because for 15 years, I answered their calls on weekends. I remembered their children's names. I treated them like people, not accounts. Gregory's expression hardened. Very touching, but let's be practical. Name your price to stop poaching our client list. I haven't poached anyone, I countered. I haven't violated any contracts. I simply informed people of my new position, and they made their own decisions. He leaned back, studying me. The board isn't happy. They brought me in to modernize things, streamline costs, not lose millions in accounts overnight. And who did they blame when you told them? I asked. His slight flinch was telling. That's irrelevant. It is to me, I replied. Because I'm guessing you didn't tell them the truth, that you dismissed the person responsible for maintaining those relationships, without comprehending the implications, that you viewed my salary as a liability, instead of an investment. Gregory's jaw tightened. They understand that necessary restructuring involves temporary disruption. Is that what you call losing 30% of your revenue base in a week? Temporary disruption. That remark struck home. His eyes widened. Slightly. It's 7 clients. I clarified. 7 clients who represent nearly a third of Apex Corporation's annual billing. But you wouldn't know that, would you? Because you were examining salary spreadsheets, not client value reports. The color drained from his face. I realized then that he'd been selectively reporting the damage to the board. How many more are at risk? He asked, his voice softer now. All of them, I said honestly. Every major client I handled for 15 years has reached out. I haven't even had to make the calls. He stared at me for a long moment. What happens if I return to the board and tell them you've been actively soliciting our clients? That you took proprietary information? Then you'd be lying, I replied calmly, and your IT audit will prove it. I didn't take a single document, download a single file, or breach a single confidence. The only thing I took was 15 years of relationships that I built personally. You can't threaten me with falsehoods, Gregory. He recoiled as if I'd struck him. How did you know about the IT audit? I simply smiled. People talk to people they trust. That's another thing you don't understand about this business. Gregory's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and a look of suppressed panic flickered across his face. We need to discuss this, he said, rising abruptly. We're not finished. But as I watched him rush out to take the call, I knew we were. Whatever was unfolding at Apex Corporation was escalating far faster than he could control. Later that afternoon, Mark stopped by my office with a perplexed expression. You just received a call from Richard Miller, he said. Your former boss? The one who retired? Former boss and former owner. I corrected him. Did he leave a number? Said you'd know it. He also said, and I quote, the board has called an emergency meeting. They want to speak with you immediately. I nodded, unsurprised. Thank you. After Mark left, I sat back contemplating my next move. The pieces were falling into place more swiftly than I'd anticipated. Richard wouldn't have called unless something significant was happening. I picked up my phone and dialed his number from memory. They're in full panic mode, Richard said, without preamble when he answered. When the board realized precisely which clients had left, they contacted me to inquire about what in the world was happening. I leaned back in my chair. And what did you tell them? The truth that the reason Apex Corporation has enjoyed such a stable client base was because of you, that you were worth every penny they paid you and then some. I appreciate that, Richard. It's not about appreciation, he grumbled. It's about 15 years of dedicated work being flushed down the toilet by some kid who thinks business is run on algorithms. The board wants an emergency session. They're asking if you'd consider returning. I wasn't surprised, but it wasn't what I desired. I'm settled at Peterson & Jones now, with 7 of our largest clients, Harold noted dryly. Soon to be 10, I admitted. 3 more are finalizing their paperwork this week. A low whistle came through the phone. No wonder they're panicking. That's 46% of Apex Corporation's annual revenue. I finished for him. The line was silent for a moment. You always did know everyone's numbers better than they did themselves, Richard finally said. So, what's your plan here, Sylvester? Because the board is prepared to offer you Gregory's position to stem the bleeding. The offer was tempting for approximately 3 seconds. Then I recalled Gregory's dismissive tone, the way he'd barely looked at me during our final meeting. How quickly 15 years of loyalty had been reduced to a line item on a cost-cutting spreadsheet. I'm not interested in his job, I said. But I am interested in something else. Name it. A strategic partnership agreement. Peterson & Jones and Apex Corporation would share client services for accounts that would benefit from both firms' expertise. Richard was silent for a moment. Processing. You want the board to authorize a partnership with the company that's currently decimating their client list. I want them to acknowledge reality. I corrected him. At the current rate, Apex Corporation won't have enough major clients to remain operational. But a partnership would stabilize both companies. My clients receive the best of both worlds. Apex retains a portion of the revenue instead of losing it entirely. And Peterson & Jones gains market share without an all-out conflict. And Gregory? That's the board's decision, I said. Although we both knew the outcome, I have no interest in his future. My sole concern is for the clients and the employees who've been caught in the crossfire of his restructuring. Richard chuckled. You always were better at chess than anyone gave you credit for. I'll present it to the board tomorrow. 9 a.m. sharp. After hanging up, I called Patricia Peterson to my office and laid out the proposal. She listened attentively, occasionally jotting down notes. This is unusually generous, she said when I finished. We could simply wait another month and acquire the remaining clients when Apex Corporation implodes. We could, I agreed. But that would harm many dedicated employees there. This way both companies benefit, the clients receive optimal service, and no one loses their job because of one man's short-sightedness. Patricia studied me for a long moment, then nodded. You really aren't doing this for revenge. Revenge is wasteful, I said. I'm interested in building something better. 45. It was Richard calling from the board meeting.
They're in, he announced simply.
A complete partnership agreement pending legal review, and Gregory has been asked to submit his resignation. Effective immediately. And the employees? No further restructuring, he confirmed. The board admitted they became too engrossed in Gregory's vision of cost-cutting. They forgot what actually makes this business thrive. I thanked him and hung up, feeling a weight lift that I hadn't even realized I'd been carrying. It wasn't about victory, it wasn't about revenge, it was about setting things right. Patricia appeared in my doorway, her eyebrows raised in inquiry. "We have a deal," I told her. "Now we build something better than either company could have achieved alone." She smiled. All because they underestimated the quiet guy who simply nodded and walked away. 6 weeks later, I stood at the podium in Peterson and Jones' conference room facing a crowd of familiar faces. Clients from both companies, board members, staff. The partnership announcement was being made official today. Gregory wasn't there, of course. Last I heard, he'd accepted a position with a startup in Tucson, Arizona, where his cost-cutting approach might actually be appropriate. "Today marks the commencement of something unique in our industry," I said, looking out at the assembled crowd. "Not a merger, not an acquisition. A genuine partnership founded on the understanding that business relationships are forged by people, not spreadsheets." From the back of the room, I spotted Richard grinning proudly. Beside him stood Deborah and several other Apex Corporation employees who'd been anxious about their futures just weeks earlier. The partnership agreement was elegantly simple. Clients could select which company would serve as their primary service provider, but would have access to the specialized services of both. Revenue would be shared based on service utilization. And most significantly, the client relations teams from both companies would be unified under my leadership. After the formal announcement, Arthur from Stellar Industries approached me, shaking his head in disbelief. "When you left Apex Corporation, I was prepared to follow you anywhere," he said. "But this is even better. You transformed getting fired into the best possible outcome for everyone except the guy who fired you." Eleanor from Summit Group joined us, nodding in agreement. "That young man never grasped what he was discarding," she said. But we did. As the event concluded, Patricia Peterson found me by the windows overlooking the city. "The board is calling it a masterstroke," she said. "In 6 weeks you've transformed both companies and secured client loyalty that should endure for years." I shook my head. I simply reminded everyone of something they already knew. Business isn't built on cost-cutting. It's built on relationships. "And revenge?" she asked with a subtle smile. "Was that a factor?" "The most effective revenge wasn't taking the clients," I replied, gazing out over Denver. "It was demonstrating to everyone the correct way to retain them." 1 month after the partnership announcement, I left the office early to meet Olivia for dinner. She'd been following the entire saga with a blend of pride and amazement. "So technically you're now more influential than before," she remarked, as we settled into our booth. I shrugged. "It's not about power. It's about doing things the right way." "Still," she persisted, "the guy who fired you is gone. You essentially have 2 companies reporting to you now, and all your clients view you as some kind of business prodigy." "I'm just a guy who answers his phone on weekends," I said, smiling. After dinner I drove home to my quiet house, reflecting on the past few months from being unceremoniously dismissed to reshaping a significant portion of Denver's business landscape. It had never been about retaliating against Gregory. It had been about proving that what I'd built over 15 years possessed genuine, enduring value. People sign contracts with people. Never forget that, Richard. I placed the frame on my desk where clients would see it during their visits. A reminder of where it all began and why it mattered. Pure satisfaction. Not from winning a corporate battle, but from knowing that conducting business ethically, the human way, still held significance. In the end, Gregory had unintentionally done me a favor. By attempting to replace me with someone less expensive, he'd inadvertently demonstrated my true value. And that was a lesson worth every minute of the journey.